But for tonight, this is the first one. So thank you for getting on. Wanted to talk a little bit. I'm hopefully going to be doing these every 2 months or so. I think is going to be the plan. But I'd like to talk about just intake procedures and assessments today, potentially, of how, everybody kind of does something different and works in a different realm here. So we'll go around first and just let everybody introduce themselves, talk about, where they're from, what they do from a business perspective. And then we'll just start kind of talking about what we do as far as intaking and assessing our clients and getting them, set up on the right path at each of your respective facilities. So, Dustin, we're going to start with you because you're at the top left-hand corner of my screen.
All right, so my name's Dustin Yancey, and I work at a gym called Move Right KC in Kansas. Australia seems like a much better place to live. Kansas is not much to do, yeah. So I'm the manager and kind of lead programmer at Move Right KC, where our kind of niche is giving people personal training quality in like a group setting. So we have up to 6 people in a group. So that's kind of what we do. So
Cool. Keaton?
Yeah, so my name is Keaton Worland. I'm from St. Louis. I am a physical therapist for about 4 years now and been a coach for about 7 or 8. So basically I work out of a company called Hands-On Therapeutics, and I have started a training company out of that as a subsidiary and work about 25% of the time in training private clients one-on-one. And the rest of the time spent as a clinician.
Awesome. Eli?
Eli's muted.
Oh, you're muted, man.
There we go.
Rookie.
Okay. My name's Eli Cochran. I've been coaching at a CrossFit gym for the past 4 years. I run our classes and our fundamentals classes. So, apart from that, I coach general classes and help my brother kind of run the gym. So.
Jordan.
Well, I'm Jordan. I live outside Seattle, Washington. So we have a warehouse gym set up. We work with, general population. My job is more to work with the athlete side. So we run baseball athletes, lacrosse, and soccer primarily through our facility.
Awesome. Adil.
Hey guys, so my name is Adil. I'm a personal trainer and instructor for Equinox in Connecticut in Darien. I work mostly with kind of like general population people, most people that think they're athletes but they're not really. And it's mostly just a lot of hedge fund, finance, Wall Street guys, and a couple moms who have their time free during the day. So,
Blake?
Yeah, so I'm based in Knoxville, Tennessee, and run a facility that is kind of a combination of things. So we obviously have kind of our general population that's like 100 members that are just general pop, and then we have another 20 or 30 that are just more middle school and high school athletes, and that's the overall setup.
Cool. Dean?
Hey, I'm Dean Deal. I'm a personal trainer for about 2 years. I more recently opened up a private facility with one of my buddies, and so we have a private training studio. I pretty much train general pop, but I kind of consult powerlifters and some strength athletes on the side. And then I'm all over the place. I opened up a company called Stronger You Fitness, kind of as a sister company to Stronger You Nutrition. And then I also work with Stronger You Nutrition as a nutrition coach, I guess. So kind of a bit of everything.
Awesome.
Hey, we're all the way from Australia, so it's actually morning here, so it's a bit different. I do powerlifting myself, and I coach these days mostly powerlifters, like 95% powerlifters online only. I do only a few hours in the gym a week. And Yeah, that's kind of our population now. We've gone away from general pop. We still have a few, but they're mostly our people now. So it's just getting people strong. We coach people all around Australia, New Zealand, a couple people there in the UK, but that's about it.
Awesome. And
okay, so I'm the lone female over here, but happy to be here. I train primarily online, and I focus on the pre-postnatal community. And I live in New York. I have a few private clients in Manhattan, even though I train mostly online.
Awesome. So as we're kind of going through this, really just like I said, I wanted to see first just kind of what we're doing, an intake process. But before I even get into that, you guys kind of alluded to it a little bit at some of your descriptions, but how do most of your clients come in? Like from a referral standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, what's usually your biggest draw? Is it a niche like powerlifting or pre-postnatal, or is it community based and fed in that way? Kind of go through the same order. You guys can ask each other questions too. I'm going to be
yes. So we get a lot of our clients through kind of word of mouth, and then online, because we're Move Right KC, it's a lot of people that have like tried to work out on their own, and they end up hurting themselves, or like the person that says, "Oh, I can't squat because my knees hurt," and then so we kind of just create programs for that, like kind of having structure and a coach is what they want. So website and word of mouth.
So people are specifically kind of looking for training coming to you. Yeah. So like we get more people that like want to get like strong and kind of jacked and tan from word of mouth, but people who kind of look at our website are more the people that like they try to work out, but they keep hurting themselves, or they don't feel like they know what they're like doing. Gotcha. Awesome. Hayden.
Yeah, so most of mine come in from, they're usually continuum, but not always. I see a lot of people that are from other companies, whether it's from my company or from other companies. I'm trying to market out to other PT companies to be that bridge in this area. So most of my clients are coming in their lifestyle change and some ability to learn how to reoccurrences of their injuries that they may have been battling with for some time. So a lot of them have had bad experiences in the gym, and so they their fear associated with they're seeking security at the same time because they don't trust themselves back in that environment right now. So a lot of it breaking down those barriers right now, right off the bat.
So from your perspective, a lot of that's a bridge program?
Sorry, say.
Or you're getting like a direct referral from the therapy training?
Yeah, so I get some direct referrals in from, but not a ton yet. That's what I'm trying to break into. Most of my word of mouth from my current patients that I've taken through, or my colleagues at my facility.
Awesome. Eli.
Yeah, so hey, real quick, there's a lot of people in here, and from like the aspect of like the gaming world, I play a lot of Xbox. Mute your mic, bro, when you're not talking. It'll help out with the clarity.
Oh yeah, let's all do that. I should have said that.
And on that note, yeah, I usually see most of the carryover from other fitness type classes like Orange Theory or cycling or current Lifetime Fitness program or Gold's Gym as the cycle through. We see a good amount from new people off the couch trying to get in on New Year's and stuff like that, but generally it's just other group fitness training in the areas that are looking for something different or potentially better.
Awesome. Adil.
So at this stage now, I think most of my clients are word of mouth. I've been at my company now for almost 8 years. And so the clients that I've had, that I typically see now, I've had for like 4 to 5 years, if not 3, probably at the minimum. So I've built kind of a consistent base of people just basically listening to what they want and not really hurting them. And for, for a group of people that are in that like 30 to 70-year-old age range and don't necessarily behave like that, they behave more like kids in terms of how they live their life and their daily habits. Finding someone that they can give them a hard enough workout but not hurt them and impede their ability to live their life has just kind of, I guess, earned me a reputation of someone who's just willing to work with people and again, not mess them up. So that's typically the case for me. And then, if management finds that someone comes in and they think that I can help them, they'll just kind of shovel it that way. But it's mostly word of mouth.
Cool. And Jordan?
Yeah, so it's same as a lot of you. It's a lot of word of mouth, a lot of referral. We work a lot with a lot of local PTs, physical therapists, and then word of mouth is mostly how we've gained our sports program. Word of mouth and organic advertising, just putting T-shirts on athletes, as well as just getting them to post stuff as well.
Mm-hmm. Love that free advertising. Blake.
Yeah, so we've been in business now about 8 years, and for the first 6, it was 6 or 7 really, it was purely word of mouth. We've grown very organically over the years, and it's honestly just been in the last 4 months that we now do a lot of active advertising. A lot of that is through, like direct Facebook ads and things like that. But we have a whole lot of kind of programs in place for referrals from clients and bring a guest type stuff. And so pretty much everybody that joins our program knows somebody here. As for the athletes, we actually are kind of partnered with one school and then another person that does skill work with some athletes. And so we get a lot of referrals from them.
Okay. A couple of different streams there. Dean.
Initially, a lot of it was just word of mouth. Before we moved into our new studio, I was working for another company and we basically just got flooded with people. So that was kind of like the initial trainer startup working for not a big box, but a private gym. And then pretty much Instagram, I kind of built up a little, none of you know Anthony, but my business partner and I, we kind of do seminars locally. So we've kind of picked up a lot of either other personal trainers or other coaches just through kind of one-off sessions here and there. So that's probably about half my schedule. And then, yeah, Instagram, Jesus. And then on the fitness end, we're kind of going through that process of figuring out how to do it, because right now, everyone in our Stronger You Fitness program is shuttled from the nutrition. So they have 4,000 customers with coaches and a 15,000 page Facebook group. So a lot of our members are kind of just shuffling in there, but we're kind of in the process of how do we do that. So really that's been word of mouth, but Instagram, word of mouth.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Will.
Yeah, so one thing I didn't mention was that our company, just quickly, just because it's relevant, but company Nexus Performance, it's me, my partner Mickey, she does all of our nutrition, and then we have another subcontractor who lives in a different part of Australia who we feed clients, and he does work with us, and we educate him with things like that as well. So I used to, and I still do get a lot of clients just from me being me lifting, which is something that it sounds like a good thing. It is a good thing, and I wouldn't stop it, that's for sure. But it's also annoying in the fact that people will come to us and they're like, "Oh, I want to work with Will. He's a big lifter and stuff like that." And we're trying to get away from that and more getting people happy to know us for our results of our people and education and stuff like that. So that our other coaches can be the same. It's just not like just me and that's it. Everybody's like that. So yeah, we get a lot of referrals and stuff, but we've been running a lot of seminars. We've got a bunch of seminars coming up just as soon as I do my comp, and yeah, we're trying to put out some more content through that to try and get the brand built up and get it away from just being me. And that's been difficult for us, but yeah, just that, and it's really is just referral for us. Like being online only, we're not really seen other than when people see us lifting at comps and stuff like that, helping out people. They come and ask us questions, little things, but 90% just Instagram, social media, talking to people.
Awesome. And Beverly.
So for me, I have a lot of free content, my podcast, YouTube, Facebook. I'm a master marketer when it comes to funnels, and I also have my free masterclass. So I've got Facebook ads and all my free content that all points towards the masterclass. And then I either sell in the DM by either just direct voice messages or face video back and forth, or I get them on a phone call and I sell them on the phone. So those are the ways I get new clients.
So it's almost entirely like social media driven.
Oh, social media driven, 100%. And honestly, because I service moms, so the largest community for me is Pinterest.
Interesting.
So I have a huge Pinterest presence, and I get a lot of traffic through them.
That is a website I don't think I've ever used or platform, I should say, not what that.
But what's awesome about Pinterest is that it functions in the same way as Google and YouTube, in the sense that they're a search engine. So you post content on there and it lives forever. People will find me from stuff that I posted a year ago.
Very cool. Awesome. So a lot of you guys are kind of traditional, like brick and mortar in-person gyms, and then we've got some of you guys that are also almost entirely remote. I'm also almost entirely remote. So this is why this is kind of fun for me, just to see what it looks like from, we kind of know where your business comes from now and where you're getting your clients from, but what it looks like when you're actually onboarding them and taking them in through the actual intake process, and how that feeds into their training, and so kind of what I want to talk more about is the intake itself, and whether you're talking pretty much just like goals, needs analysis, or if you're looking deeper into environmental lifestyle coherence, trying to gauge a level of autonomic stress, nutrition. I mean, some of you guys work with nutrition companies as well, injury history, whatever, just kind of seeing what big markers you look for and how that directs you into potentially different programs within your business. Anyone want to go first? I feel like I keep getting Dustin to go first there, but
I'll go first.
So we can go different order.
I'll go first. So this has actually been a huge thing for me, and the reason why is because it's taken me some time to get really clear on my messaging. And I think for strength and conditioning coaches in general, online or in prison, is that we're kind of just a dime a dozen. And so the wanting to hone in on what makes you unique, aside from your story and aside from naming your unique mechanism, for me, it's been the intake process. And it's basically all my free content is all about how you create the gap. And when I say create the gap, I'm talking about like I'm explaining the what and the why, and the program becomes the how we're going to do it. And the intake process for me that's been like the key factor. So for me, I help moms lose weight without body hate. So a lot of my free content has been thought reversals around, wait, body image, that's a thing, I need to know that. And right now in the fitness industry, in my opinion, you see a huge dichotomy between, it's either body positive and weight loss is bad, or it's let's feed the diet culture and weight loss is associated with self-esteem. So I have created this space of it actually depends on each other. So in my intake stuff, so people have come to me knowing that this is what we're going to talk about. So in my intake, I have a very which I'm happy to share, by the way, but all the questions are designed in a slate of mouth kind of frame, where it's designed to get them to start shifting the way they think about food, the way they think about movement. And so we talk all about where they are, what they've done, and all of their stuff around food. And then I make them send me videos of how they move. And I specifically pick 2 big movements, which is I want to know what their range of motion is in their squats. And I also want to know what their range of motion is in the upper body. So it is it's FMS based. So I take those 2 videos first, and then we decide.
Very cool. Thank you. Anyone want to go next? Blake, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is actually something we've been tinkering with quite a bit, especially in the last year. And we've simplified it probably more than ever. So now most people, when they come to us, they have what we call a roadmap session, where this can be one person or multiple people that they sit down with us and go over just initially what they're really wanting to achieve with us. So we start being a lot more clear with communication, just making sure that we can provide what they are looking for. And then we've actually switched up our assessments. We don't do tons of like your what used to be, say, FMS, or looking at all very like individual movements anymore. We go a lot more global, because what we found is we're gonna generally get a lot of people doing certain things in the beginning of their program, no matter how they look. I'm not saying we force people into bad positions, but we're just gonna get people to squat, push, pull, lunge, all that. And what we found with assessments sometimes is you tend to kind of make people feel like they don't move well or are broken in a sense. And so we basically just coach them up in their initial sessions on all the main movements and use that as our assessment for our coaches. And then spend the first 2 to 3 weeks with kind of intro sessions where we are breaking down the little nitty gritty of how they move. And then after they've been with us for 12 weeks, we ask them to schedule a more in-depth assessment, where then we actually are asking them about infrasternal angle and going in and measuring hips or shoulders, just depending on what they presented with. But we've definitely kind of dumbed it down in a way in the last year, and we've seen a lot of good come from it.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's a good approach. I was interested to hear what you said, because I knew you've worked with Zach in the past as well.
Yeah.
What is in addition to that, do you do any other paperwork or any other screening just to get a better idea of what their lifestyle is like?
Yeah, so we did do switch this up in the last few months that we have now. When the moment after they purchase, so because some people do purchase some stuff after exchanging emails with us back and forth and purchase online. So even before that roadmap, we have your general PAR-Q, and then we do a lot of like goals-based questions and a questionnaire. So they're showing up to us with already us knowing a good bit of what they're looking for. And yeah, with reference to Zach, that's a big part of where we change some things. We know that pretty much a lot of people present with some very common things in the beginning. So a lot of our warm-ups are geared towards attacking a lot of that low-hanging fruit, and not spending unnecessary times on things that we may never have even need to go to. And then just letting our programming and lifting clear a lot of things up.
Yeah, well, that's been a huge emphasis of mine as well, is finding, going away from, the strict, movement-based assessments that I've done in the past that involved, 20 tests, right? And trying to find the big rocks that are going to kind of clear out maybe 90+% of the issues that I see on an everyday basis with people, and finding, the easiest interventions to perform on people, right? Finding, like people always ask me, like, so what do I use for this? What do I use for that? I'm like, I start everybody with the same 2 strategies, both just sagittal competency-based strategies, hamstring and abs, right? And that clears so many people up that I usually don't have to move into anything more complex. Really, we can just start training and let things work themselves out. So I like that a lot. That's definitely a lot of where I've gone as well.
And to piggyback on that, like I might as well just go, because you basically said what I do anyways. It's that idea of like what I've found over the years is that all the stuff I used to do and all the table tests doesn't really matter in terms of how I'm going to do most stuff anyways, because I can see if they don't have internal rotation. I can see their infrasternal angle. And like Kyle said, I've kind of just switched it almost straight to education at the beginning. It's sagittal competency, show them hamstrings, abs, and then like I basically will evaluate how fast I can start doing an actual training session with them, like a full-on, after I've taught them the things. And for most people, I've gotten pretty good at it, where it usually takes half a session, then we can start doing things. So when I intake someone, they kind of already come to me for those things anyways, just because of my Instagram. and then I show them, and then that will dictate when we actually start doing stuff. But it's always the same stuff. So if they have these problems, it's not PRI based, but it's the same fix regardless, so that you just do that in the warm up. So 5 minutes, just get them moving, do some sagittal plane stuff, and then usually they'll clear most tests anyways. They don't have to know that, but like Blake said, if I do tests on them, they think that there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And then they're trying to game the test anyway. So I just found it doesn't really do anything in terms of my clientele. Now, the only difference is when I have like powerlifters come in, usually they're extension based, and they'll fail all the tests. So they want to know how to pass that so that they can do their powerlifting thing better. And that's when I'll do higher level education stuff. But it kind of just depends on my client. But basically the same thing Blake said is like I don't do much anymore, but I do the same thing.
Well, it's kind of like this bell curve, right? Where you have to do enough assessments and get to a point of education where you can preemptively make some really intelligent assumptions, I guess.
Yeah.
To kind of get to the point where you maybe don't have to go through the entire process, right? And I think that's where a lot of, especially experienced trainers get is after you, I mean, it's, Beverly and I have worked together in the past, but after you run 200 FMSs on people, you can tell a lot just by the time somebody walks in front. You can just by how they walk into the actual gym and what their gait looks like. I know pretty much what their OHS is going to look like, right? It's same thing with PRI. Somebody walks in and they're a narrow body type. You can pretty much assume, well, this person's going to measure narrow, right? That tells me what their ISA is. That tells me probably what their IPA is, what their IR and ER looks like from a femur perspective. And I can probably put some strategies in place right now that are globally going to help them a lot without getting into the nitty gritty. So I like that. And, sometimes we just need to train people and see how they react and not be too rigid in that.
That was the one thing, is that if we get into training right away, then they feel like they're getting something. And I don't know, it's just my bias on it, but I hate them coming in and thinking it's going to be a physio session, because most people when they come in, they don't think that they're going to do these table tests. And if you show them that their IR sucks, they're going to be like, holy fuck, because it's so bad for most people. And then they think that's a problem. And really it's an easy fix if you give them competency. So it's just a matter of, I just don't like making people feel like they suck, even if they do, because it's not going to change how we train and do stuff, because they still have to learn the foundation stuff first. And that's pretty much going to be the same in terms of sagittal competency. The other stuff, just save it for later. But 90% of the stuff in the gym is all the same stuff to me.
Yeah, and honestly, piggybacking on that with a caveat for me, we kind of have a little bit of a niche that we get a lot of post-rehab people with some very complicated histories sent to us. And yet that's probably taught me even more about going simpler, because those people we get people that have been 4 or 5 years of therapy and have been told all these things, and we still are getting them in hook line breathing positions and then getting them into basic stuff. And maybe it's a bodyweight squat, maybe it's teaching. So it's like, we've taken that to the utmost of saying, we want these people out of fear completely. And so we want them feeling tired and feeling worked, something that they haven't felt in years. So.
Yeah. I see Keaton nodding his head. Let's hear from you.
Yeah, so that's exactly what my goal is to do. They have been in most of my clients are persistent pain people that are just capable of moving, have developed this mindset that they are a fragile human, and so like you said, just get them moving. The only thing that I probably do is I contact whoever the clinician is, and I just do a little background with them rather than with the patient and have them have to rehash and relive their story. I get a foundation of where they're coming from, what was successful in their rehab, what wasn't successful, and kind of what their attitude towards movement was, so I can approach it in a better way rather than just also jumping on the bandwagon and saying, hey, we're going to move, if I know that's going to start to throw up some red flags. So I think that conversation with the other clinician is also very valuable. But besides that, everything else that everybody's saying is, going after that competency sagittally, and then just exploring other options and just letting them know that they can do anything. You just got to show them a regression or progression.
Awesome. Adil.
So I mean, my assessment kind of runs a little bit. I mean, very similar to what everyone's already mentioned. I'm trying to think of what's different. I do still rely on table tests because I think they do give me some information that's important when it comes to coaching. Like for example, if I test someone's obers and I find that their leg won't go anywhere, meaning they're very, very tonic, they're very, very sympathetic, that person for me is someone who is going to need more references or cues to kind of inhibit areas versus necessarily like facilitating muscles. So like, for example, like if I get a person like that and I put them in a 90-90 and I want them to feel hamstrings, they'll feel hamstrings, but they'll also feel low back, hip flexors, calves, everything. And I don't want their brain to sense that these are all pieces that are going to contribute to them stabilizing their pelvis. I want them to recognize that you have this, one set of massive muscles that are going to be your proximal pelvic stabilizers. And so instead of cueing them to get hamstrings, because I know they're tonic or I can sense that they're tonic from the test, I'll tell them to, think about letting their low back relax or letting their calves relax or basically whatever else they're presenting themselves with as also recruiting. I'll strip those references away rather than just emphasizing more and more hamstrings. And then on the flip side of that, if I do an Ober's test on somebody and I find that they're like just, incredibly like mobile or lax, typically for them, I'll have to use more referencing or more cues to facilitate muscles because that's more of a sign that their system essentially has let go. They're not getting much feedback from class 1 sensors. They're really just relying on passive tissue to stabilize them for whatever reason, they found that to be the case for. And so for them, I might spend maybe a little bit more time in like the remedial positions, like a 90-90 or a side lying or all fours. And for these people, like I'll probably have my hands on them too. And I'll say like, look, I need you to get this area as hard as you can. I need you to hold that for X amount of breaths or X amount of, whatever. Just because I found that with the lifting population of people, especially where I am, where like close to New York City, everyone's like just so like sympathetic and driven, and the last thing they want to do is breathe. Like these people have a over recruitment, which is great. It helps them live their life in all aspects. But for them, like I need them to facilitate that towards particular areas. And for them, again, like getting them to let go of, areas that are going to basically compete with what I want them to figure out how to manage. I've just found that to be, just better for me in the long run. And then like, it sounds like a lot of people here are exposed to PRI. So like I just basically go along a kind of a shorter assessment in terms of what they recommend. I look at their femurs. I see, do they have a good AIC on both sides? I look at, and that'll tell me about their pelvis too. Then I'll look at their BC pattern and see, can they get abs to stabilize the thorax on top of a pelvis? And then I'll go to cervical tests to look at more TMCC stuff. And then usually what I'll do is I'll just do 3 orthopedic tests. I'll do the Obers. I'll have them do apical expansion. Then I'll do like the cervical tests. Just because for me, that's going to get them in a gym setting. People don't want to be on a table, at least that's from my experience. So I'll try to get them doing more activities like you all mentioned, where it's movement and you can tell from the movement what they may or may not be biasing. But then I just kind of run them through these functional chains and see how well can they manage. Can they shift in and out of a hip? Can they shift with a hamstring and an adductor versus a low back? And then I'll work them just through my checklist of everything from hamstring up to how they manage their sphenoid.
Awesome. So how different is that than the standard Equinox assessment?
It's definitely way different. It's because for us, they want us to do something that's reproducible across the board for all their trainers. Because if someone moves from New York, or even if they're going on a business trip from New York to California, and they still want to keep pace with their training frequency, they want to have a trainer there who can look at their, let's call their EquiFit, and see, all right, so-and-so has a 2 on their shoulder mobility or whatever, and then they can give them a workout or just follow along with that workout. Outside of FMS, it's just, the basic, like, hey, what are you here for? PAR-Q, informed consent. But in terms of movement or like mechanical orthopedic stuff, it's typically just FMS and then just some small range of motion stuff.
Cool. Anyway, who's next? Volunteers? I think Jordan was the first hand up there.
Yeah, I'll go. So this was pretty cool to hear, just because a lot of people I've talked to locally, they're all very much straight to the table, and that's not where I feel my strong suit is as much. I like a lot of you, group my athletes together. When you look at a lot of baseball players, they're going to have the same kind of progressions through, or the same patterns. My lacrosse players, they're going to have the same ankles and shoulders. So I kind of group them together that way. But a lot of it comes down to that initial strategy session, just talking with them and seeing what they're really trying to get, what they've done in the past and what's worked, or what they've done in the past that has led them to come train with us. And then that next portion, I'll take them to the table for a little bit, especially with a lot of my overhead athletes, but just to see how everything moves, just to see some end ranges, feel them real quick. We also use our table tests to help set them positions when we go watch them squat. So we'll go through just like a hip mobility test, and once they're squatting, we can help set them up in a better position, so when their first session does come, they already know where their feet should be, and we can start moving pretty quickly through that. But similarly, like what you have all mentioned, is the first 2 months of training is pretty basic anyways. I see more from the, watching someone do a split squat or a lunge or a squat than we'll see in that first day. And plus they're nervous, they're not in the right state. I'd rather see them when they're more relaxed.
Awesome. Eli, you were next up there.
Cool. Just wanted to say I'm actually really happy to hear everyone's assessment platforms so far. You may or may not be surprised at how many CrossFit gyms actually do any form of movement screening, whatever that may be, as far as getting clients in the door and getting them actually moving through pretty intense workouts. So happy to see that everybody's on the same page.
Yep.
Whenever you come into Streamline, we always offer a free week to people to come try it out, and we're always going to regress movements and we'll work out accordingly. During that time, we kind of see if you're a good mover or not. We highly recommend that you do fundamentals if we don't necessarily think you're the best mover in the room. And then that gives me 4 personal training sessions on which I cover our squat day, our pressing day, our pulling day, and then I recap all 3 on day 4. I'll always start with a first hour session consult. I actually have my processes here too. So we have kind of like a standard doctor's format kind of thing, like medical history type stuff. After that, we ask fitness history, goals, nutrition stuff. So one, it's kind of a big thing getting them to actually write down their goals, and then how committed they are to actually doing them. I usually tell them 1 to 10, no 7. We get some biometrics in, so we hop them on the scale, body fat percentage, muscle mass, and then I get measurements as far as bicep, thighs, waistline, and then just a little cheat sheet that I can quick reference other coaches on stuff like a toe touch, quality of the squat, quality of the press, things like that. And then the third page we use, I sit down with them for a rough 30 minutes to an hour, depending, and we kind of walk through what their day-to-day life looks like. So my goal during this whole process is trying to get them to talk as much as possible. I want to have the short questions that try and keep feeding their responses. The better I get to know them and kind of get them to trust me, better off we are in starting our actual fitness process. But yeah, get all their notes done. They always think it's really cool to actually see their day kind of lined out, like 7 a.m., wake up, eggs, kids, whatever. After that, we go through what would be the more robotic type questions of the goals in their day-to-day life. Like, how would you rate your stress level? How would you rate your sleep quality? Things kind of like that. So yeah, everyone goes through the consult that I just talked about, and then depending on that first free week, we like to see if you would be pushed towards fundamentals or not. If not, we usually push into class, but we like to do the onboarding too.
Yep.
Yeah, and beyond that, I usually recommend meeting me for an assessment at a later date, which I kind of get a little more advanced, talking all the table test stuff and whatnot. So.
Very cool. Will.
Hey. All right. Yeah. So the population that I said were powerlifters mainly. Most of them that we get these days are pretty decent lifters. They're already pretty strong. Most of them are young. Most of them are generally beat up, been doing the sport a couple of years. And so a lot of them are already really driven and motivated, and so there's a bit less of that going on for us. and they're really already like all they want to do is just for their numbers to go up, which can be good and bad because a lot of them just don't care about their health and don't care about their movement. They just like squat, bench, deadlift. If those numbers go up, I'm cool, like sweet. End of story. And considering like a lot of the coaches that coach powerlifting are just good lifters, it kind of like that they just encourage that, and it's great. So we get like this big circle of people just getting more and more injured, and I think that's a problem with powerlifting itself, less than what you guys are dealing with, which is people that actually want to be healthy and move better. So that's the bit I kind of like struggle to, and I have to try and convince people that moving better and longevity and these things are going to lead to bigger numbers. And so, although it might take a little bit longer, I have to try and prove that what all these little things like the assessments and all the little weird drills that we do have meaning in the program, value in the program, as opposed to just, doing what they've done, which is just really specific stuff year round in the past usually. Anyway, so they'll come on. We'll go through a basic questionnaire. This is online, remember, only. We'll talk about their current bests, past comps, upcoming comps. They'll send me videos, some health stuff, so like recovery stuff, so sleep, nutrition, hydration, all that stuff. And past injuries, any little things they've got going on, medication. Also just like any known weaknesses in their lifting, any issues that they've had in the past with competitions like that. I'm just curious as to what people pick out as their own weaknesses, because they're often very wrong about that. But interested to see where their head's at, because like I said, a lot of powerlifters think that they're quite indestructible when they walk in. So unlike you guys, most of you guys are trying to stay away from table tests a little bit, to not give them like a fear mindset. For me, it's like, I don't want to make them scared that they're going to break, but it's more like saying, hey, if they've been missing depth consistently in the squat and their knees are playing off like this, I'm saying like the table test will kind of help me to prove why that's happening, and then I can use that to justify some of the smaller drills and get buy-in with those drills, because like a lot of powerlifters will just skip that stuff. They're just like, no, screw that, I'll do squat, bench, deadlift, I'll do some heavy stuff, and I'll walk out of the gym, and that's it. So for me, it's like more using those table tests and stuff to, I'll try and do as little as possible, but I'll try and do the ones that show them where their weaknesses are, so that when I come back to them, I can say, see how we did that stuff, and now this has improved. Great, cool, let's keep doing. And just it's more of making them do that stuff, because that's the hard part. Making them actually get in the gym and lift heavy and stuff like that is easy for me. Like, they're going to do that there. Yeah. But making them do that small stuff is difficult. So yeah, they'll give us that basic information. We'll get on the phone with them over Zoom and just talk to them. So that's the first chance I'll get to kind of get an idea of how they think, whether they are that person that's indestructible in their mind, which is usually the people that are newer to it, because they've been making big jumps on their totals since, they haven't got to the point where issues have built up to a point where it's causing injury or pain or whatever. Or whether they have had past injuries, and I need to take it maybe a little bit less aggressive with them and not tell them how broken they are and stuff like you guys said. But for the most part, most people that I run into are the big buff guys that are not broken, and all they want to do is just lift heavy. So yeah, a little bit different as to like the testing mindsets, I guess, as to how I do it behind it. So yeah, I'll send them through videos of assessments, and then they'll take videos, I'll send them back. I'll use that to drive what I give them for warm-ups, what I give them for correctives in their programs, what regressions, progressions, things like that, and use it to explain and justify why I've given them. So hopefully I get more buy-in with that stuff. And then over time, I have to do less and less of that stuff, because they start trusting me as things stop hurting. yeah, and then we'll just continue on. I'll retest every now and then through the programming, but usually it dies down a little bit over time. But yeah, so it's a bit different working with people like that, I guess.
Yeah,
as other people.
It's almost the exact opposite population, right? Where they all, rather than thinking they're injured or broken, they all think they're unbreakable. So I like how you use those more as validation for doing some of the things that'll hopefully keep them healthier in the long term, throughout their training.
Yeah, they're a very, like you said in some of your posts before, Kyle, it's just like you can get really, really strong by just doing like squat, bench, deadlift. Get really strong at squat, bench, and deadlift, you know what I mean? But eventually that either stops because you get injuries and stuff, or people just turn to drug abuse or stuff like that. And so I have to really, really justify it to some people, which sucks, but it's how it is.
Yeah. You're doing the Lord's work over there, man.
It's difficult.
Sure. Dustin.
I see it completely differently.
Yeah, so what we usually start off with is the owner of the gym. He'll do a initial consult, free consult with the member or the new person, and then he'll kind of sell them on that. And then they come to me we do a 90-minute, what we call an assessment, but really it's just preparing them because all of our niche is the group training, and it's really just to prepare them for that first class or the first session. So I just go over injury history, and they kind of went over some of that stuff in the consult, but I just kind of go more in depth with it. But we do injury history, kind of their past injuries. I mean, their past training. So I can I ask them, how do you like it? How did that work for you? Kind of so that I can know how I need to speak to them or present the program to them, or, for example, if somebody's done Orange Theory before, Kyle, you've talked about a lot, like a lot of people just want to sweat and do abs. So like, I'll make sure that maybe we change the program at the end to where they're doing like some time-based sets or something like that. But I do the table tests. I kind of do a lot of Zach Couples stuff, kind of his assessment. And that's just for me to figure out what breathing drill to have them do, because everybody has their own specific breathing drill when they first come in for the first 5 minutes of the class. And then we go through a general warm-up. And that's what we do after those tests. I teach them the general warm-up, and then I take them through kind of the fundamental movement patterns and kind of see where I'm going to start with them with like what type of squat variation, and because we get a lot of different training levels coming to us. And then from there after they're done with that, I'll kind of figure out if do they need a couple personal training sessions, or are they kind of ready to go? Are they going to be prepared? Because everybody has their own tablet, so we use Team Builder to keep track of their workouts, and we got to kind of teach them that too, and during that session. So there's two ways to go. Like if they're doing the classes, we also have onboarding sessions. So we have 21 days that we do the assessment, and then 21 days to do the onboarding. And there's onboarding sessions where we're just like kind of going over the little things of like breaking down a squat, because when you first go into a session, it goes really fast. So we want to make sure that we lay down that foundation for them. So that's kind of what we do.
Nice. So when you say breathing drills, are you talking like exhalation strategies, or are you talking?
Yeah. So, for example, I was the person that did 20 different tests, like what you guys were saying. But yeah, I'll do an ISA, and then to figure out if they're a hard exhaler or a soft exhaler, basically. And then I primarily start with 90-90 hip lift with everybody, but like I'll go through the breathing drill with them that I think that we're gonna do, and And then if there's somebody who's like kind of having a hard time with just like the breathing, I won't add the arms to it. I'll just keep a regular 99 hip lift. And hopefully with just practice and me sending a video to them through email and them practicing at home and those onboarding sessions, they'll get it. So they'll be more prepared for the class. And a lot of times I use those table tests just to create buy-in with it, because in Kansas City, there's like nobody doing a lot of this breathing stuff. So they're like, what the heck is this? So I make sure to test and retest just to initially. But with figuring out arm position, we will, once we feel like the person's like master the breath in that position we gave them, then we'll kind of do shoulder IR within this session to dictate what if it's a double arm reach or arms overhead or something like that.
Cool. So from an assessment standpoint, there's definitely a lot of variation between, what's going on. I think some of us, based on our populations and demographics, are going to go obviously deeper into the passive testing, the table testing. And again, I think that's perfectly appropriate, for who we're working with, certainly. I think the next thing I just kind of wanted you guys to speak about before we kind of have an open question situation is when we start looking at goals needs analysis, how you're breaking that down and how you're perceiving the differences between quantitatively driven goals and qualitatively driven goals, meaning specificity versus more lifestyle from that perspective. And if you are handling those things differently, how so when it comes to the programming aspect? Anyone want to go first on that? Not as many hands.
I'll go.
Thanks, Dean. I appreciate it.
You know what? I want to say like I have this crazy process, and I don't. Usually when people come in, we have a private studio, so like it's at a house, and we kind of built out a gym, and we have like a lounge area. I'll just like sit down and talk with people. Usually for like I just try to take the time at the beginning to like sit down for like a half an hour to an hour, shoot the shit a little bit, because I usually have like a lot of friends come in, or like friends of friends, or usually my Instagram is local, so like I already have an idea of these people. And so quantitatively, I would say I'll keep a note on it, but I just really try to dive into lifestyle stuff, because most people that are seeing me, I don't want to say it's a niche, but it ends up being guys like me who are now working, who are either ex-athletes or something. And I'm just trying to I'm trying to see where they're at working out wise, and then try to fit in working out into their schedule. Because if they don't do it and they don't have adherence, I know I'm not going to get them. So like my conversation is just like trying to figure out where their life is and where they can fit the workouts in and how much time they have. And then that will kind of dictate whether it's a 2-day or 4-day. But with a lot of general pop, it's a lot of the same stuff. I want to say the only time I get into specifics is if they're coming specifically, and then we're talking table tests, what are your powerlifting numbers, and like how much time you have, blah, 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 blah. So generally it's a conversation, and then it's nothing really specific. But again, I like to get into things pretty fast because I want them to get something out of it. So it's just a matter of we'll kind of evaluate goals after a month, after we've had that initial conversation, then keep going. So yeah, I wish it was like really specific, but it's not. But I'm trying to get at their life and how they can include it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, so this is something we are trying to figure out how to quantify a bit more often. So something that we've started doing now that really in just the last 4 months isn't always right up front, but with all of our personal programming people, we have set Sunday check-ins every single time now. And they ask a lot of your, numbers-based stuff. How many workouts did they hit? How many times did they complete the habits, their daily drills, all of those. And then we are constantly asking them the whole, how are they feeling? What do they feel went well the last week? What did they struggle with? And how can we be of service to them this week? So what we found out is instead of going too in-depth in their initial stuff, besides the basics, we've been trying to figure out more on making it an ongoing thing, and have seen kind of better results with that.
How are you tracking all those things? Like the Sunday?
Yeah, so we use TrueCoach software for a lot of our personal programming, and we're about to throw this out to our group programming. I'm kind of scared of how this is all going to go, but we made exercises in there that actually can be trackable metrics. So we would set a metric as, what do you feel went well in the last week, or on a scale of 1 to 10, how was the week? What would it take to move it forward a number? And we can tie it to a metric so that we can see all the past results that they've entered for as long as we want.
I like it. Nice. I use TrueCoach with my remote training as well, and it kind of set up like a daily questionnaire.
Yeah.
Within their first kind of if they go to the profile, if they remember, if I don't have to remind them.
Yeah.
Nice. Who else? Who's next?
I'll go ahead. So we have so Equinox makes us use not makes us use, but they have a particular template or a particular way they want to emphasize not just training frequency but behavior change. And so they will make us emphasize 3 areas: movement, nutrition, and regeneration. And so, certain people want to have their goals more regularly monitored to see whether or not they're getting a return. For other people, they just want to have a Band-Aid to keep living their life the way they want to live. And to them, a workout a couple times a week serves that. So for the people that want that feedback, whether it be even just like subjective or quantitatively, like a movement goal we'll give them, for example, is, hey, listen, if we're seeing you 3 times a week, we're going to track, or you're going to track through either, this particular habit tracking app that Equinox has, or just basically through our communication, whether or not you were able to do this stuff on your day off. And then we'll kind of just run that loop for whether it's like a nutrition related habit or a regeneration related habit. For nutrition stuff, they have us use most of like precision nutrition stuff. So we'll go through like a step-by-step coaching with that in terms of their habit building. And then for regeneration, it's really just what that person is willing to do that doesn't seem like burdensome to them. So for example, if someone's more of like a laid back person, we'll talk about having them meditate a couple times a week. Or if someone is, not really into that, we'll say, hey, listen, once a week we need you to go and spend some time with a friend that you haven't seen in a while, or just something, whatever. Again, based off of what is feasible for them. And we'll just track on a monthly basis whether or not they were able to hit their benchmarks. And, if they weren't, they make us do this thing called coaching conversations, where we just discuss what were the barriers that prevented you from being able to do this. This is how it related to, what your outcome is that you wanted, and then just kind of adjust from there.
Very cool. So there is a pretty decent level of lifestyle coherence there, but it's really just looking at kind of low-hanging fruit from a lifestyle perspective.
Yeah, it is. And obviously, like with everybody, it varies from person to person and what they're willing to put into it. And I think that's just where your emotional intelligence comes into play, and you just kind of go with what you think is not going to annoy this person, but you constantly telling them to do it over and over again. And again, some people are more serious about it than others, but you just work with what the person seems to be capable of doing, and then you just adjust accordingly.
So let me ask you this. If you weren't working for a corporate company and you didn't have these guidelines or systems in place, what would you do differently?
That's a good question. To be honest, I think I don't know if I would regiment it as much. I think I would first, just after getting to know the person, recognize like how important is this to you, and depending on how important this is to you, what is the biggest rock that can have you essentially hit that's not going to make it seem like it's a big responsibility. And if I have someone who really just wants to not feel tired all the time and they're seeing me 3 times a week, I might put emphasis on, some type of lifestyle coherence or something where I'll send them a text, or I'll have them create a log of some sort and say, is this too much for you to fill in this sheet that I made through Google Sheets and say whether or not you did this one thing? If someone's more old school, print out a chart for them and have them do something like that. But I think it's whatever is going to be the least invasive for the person. And it won't be necessarily broken down into movement, nutrition, or regeneration. It's just what is the thing that is going to help you get the most return with what you're seeking the most from.
Yeah, perfect. Who else? Anybody else? Who's next? Go ahead, Eli.
All right. So I guess, yeah, it's a lot of my initial consult with people is whenever I'm listing out what their day-to-day life looks like. I try and save all prescriptions of what I may think be beneficial in day-to-day activity towards the end or for the end. But I usually have them write out a list after I hear them talk about it. And I want them to write down 2 big interferences that they know are potentially blocking them from getting to set goal that they have. And then 3 things they think they could add into their day that will potentially kind of put them in that direction. As far as like how they're feeling, the general happy, hungry, horny is what I ask them. Quantitative, we like to do HRV tracking. So we have everybody, or we like to have people get a heart rate monitor. So just strap it on and every like 2.5, 3 minutes. From that, it asks them questions like, how was your sleep quality? How was the exercise stress that day? How was lifestyle habits? Did you drink? Did you eat late? Coffee, stuff like that. So it makes me think about what their day was looking like. After that, it would give them a stress rating based on their nervous system, if they're like sympathetic or parasympathetic for the day, and hopefully give us an idea of how hard they should be pushing in the gym. And then I want to make sure as I'm talking with them on the insult or the consult process that I'm pointing out the potentials that are going to improve day-to-day life, pushing towards this goal, but I need them to make sure they're weighing how they view the pleasure of that routine and if it's worth the potential benefit that changing it or adding something to it. So when I can get them to kind of really relate dig deep and say, I'm viewing my life objectively, this is what I really enjoy, and this is what's going to pursue and continue that, then I feel a lot better.
Cool. What do you use for HRV?
So we used to use Elite HRV, and we just started using HRV for training.
Gotcha. Very cool.
For
yeah. Who's next?
I'll go. So a lot of the people that are saying are coming out of rehab for me, and so they haven't necessarily treated themselves very well, haven't made themselves a priority. So a lot of my goal setting for them is to recognize that they are important, they need to value and take care of themselves. So balancing their needs and wants, and letting them recognize what those needs are, because a lot of them, they don't have an idea that they're breathing poorly, or they don't walk well, or whatever it might be. They don't sleep well. And so I put together a document and I send it out to them. Has different sleep strategies, nutrition strategies, their workouts with tips, cues, video instructions, whatnot. But as we're going through, I go through what I call an eye test. Basically, I have them tell me what I can't do for a physical limitation, what I won't do for a psychological limitation, what I need to be able to do from a survival or perception base, and then what I want to do, something that can motivate them so we can always stay oriented on task. But from there, when they come in each day, I don't necessarily ask them what's hurting or what's wrong with them, but I ask more or less, what did you do well this week? I give them a habit checklist. I don't really ever look at it. I just ask them, did you hit your habits? Have you been consistent with things? And then help them fill in extra blanks that I leave at the bottom of that habit list, so that they can start stacking habits and then creating a more resilient lifestyle for them.
Thanks. Who's next? Beverly.
I was just about to unmute too. Okay, so for me and my peeps, we track 2 things depending on the mom. If you want to talk about movement, we track a lot of, I work with a lot of moms that have diastasis. So we're checking their diastasis at least twice a month. So I teach them how to do that since it's all online. we're measuring that, and we're also measuring movement and whether or not they're leaking. Like, are they peeing in their pants when they're moving? And if that's the case, then we're definitely talking to their pelvic floor physical therapist. But a lot of these moms don't know that that's something that they need to be paying attention to. So that is in terms of the movement and quantitative aspect of measuring. That is what we're keeping track of. But on the lifestyle side, we're talking, I have a journal, a daily journal that I make them. I request them to fill out, which basically just makes them line up 3 really simple, and they get to decide. So it's very client-centered. 3 simple things that they get to, that their most important tasks, things that they need to achieve, that's going to help teach their brain that they're winning, essentially. And in that journal, we talk about, I have very specific questions that I ask them about their, what's going well, what do they want to improve on, but mostly it's what's going well. And then for my one-on-one clients, we review it and we talk about it in their coaching call. And then I do once a month check in with their measurements in terms of if they're, especially since they're working on weight loss, I will check in on that. But there's a huge shift towards more of how do you feel? How do you feel in your clothes? Are you sleeping? Or do you feel, and working on stress. Working on stress.
How are the coaching calls the once a month check-in, or do you do those?
Oh, I do weekly for my one-on-one clients. So I have 2, right? So you either can be in a membership and do it in a DIY fashion, but for my one-on-one clients, we're on the phone 30 minutes once a week. And by phone, I mean Zoom. And they get to use the time the way that they want. So we can either be going over movement, we can be checking your diastasis, we can be going over the program, we can be going over your journal. And it's not just a food log, because they journal about lots of things, their stress, their sleep. And when we're talking about food, it's more about their relationship with food and what's happening, what led up to the meal that they ate, how they felt after they ate. So it's more about that and less about the what.
The journal, is the journal a
It's a PDF. It's a Google Doc PDF that I sent to them that they download, and they can see it or not.
So you can see it as well in real time? Like, is it a Drive account? Okay. That's what yeah.
Well, I send most of my client stuff is done on Google Drive and Kajabi.
Okay.
So there's Trainerize, and I know there's a lot of trainer specific, but I wanted it to be all my stuff, so I put it on Kajabi.
Very cool. Awesome. Thank you. Who's next? Yeah, go ahead, Jordan.
Perfect. So working primarily with high school and college athletes, we're really just checking, am I getting stronger? Is my weight going up, or is it staying the same? And my speed. So we have the speed laser gates. We'll do a lot of like broad jumps, vertical jump testing as well. And then the one I care about as the trainer, as the coach, is are they moving well? Are they feeling better? Do their hips feel less tight? Are they able, after pitching a game, how does their shoulder feel after? And how quick can we recover till the next time they feel all right again? And so some of that goes into lifestyle, just talking with them, verbal questionnaires. We use Bridge Athletics as well. And so I'll have all the questionnaires on my phone, on my computer, just going through how much, like what they think of their hydration through the week, what they think of their stress levels through the week, how their body's feeling, how long their workouts have been.
So a lot of subjective questionnaires.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. Dustin.
Yeah, so we don't, because we're in a group, we haven't done much with kind of lifestyle coherence, like trying to build habits. But I'm interested in, Blake, how you do that with so many people. We're in the process now of trying to figure out a way, whether it's just me and the owner right now. So with a big group of people trying to manage our time wisely and not kind of getting over over our heads with trying to do too much. But that's something, because I think that's more important, because a lot of people want to lose weight. So it's like you can't outwork out a crap diet, right? So, and but the one thing that we do keep track of, and it's more just to make things fun and a little bit of competitive, is monthly challenges where we might do like a 5-minute bike test or a grip, like we measure their grip, and it's a way to kind of keep track of, are we getting stronger? Are we getting more conditioned? And it gives them feedback of like, and what is what I'm doing enough to get me where I'm at, where I want to be. But like, some of the challenges are silly. Like we're doing a March Madness shootout and this month. So but yeah, that's all we do with our group class. But Blake, how are you? If you don't mind me asking, how are you? Is there any changes that you're going to do for the big groups, like for your group? Because you said 100 members, or I mean that seems like a big task.
To give probably everybody context, we do personal programming, which is really, it's semi-private. That's like 1-on-3, 1-on-4. And our group classes are actually semi-private classes. They're 10 people all on different programs. So there's a lot that goes on into it. But all to say, communication, first of all, like with my team, with our members, like we make it as redundant as possible. We have stuff posted at the gym. We have, the emails, we have all these things to make sure that they at least have clarity in what we're asking for. And then just a lot of preparation ahead of time. So like, for instance, we laid out a lot of our plan for our Sunday check-ins all the way back in January. We have all our Sunday emails. We made those, we're like 3 months ahead on those going out. We have a member roster in our office that lets us know, who's completed what. And like in every single member's folder, there's actually a list of all the habits they're working through. And we give them autonomy by saying, like they have to be the ones checking certain things off. And then we have one of my team members going into those folders at the end of the month to see how they are. I don't know if that's answering your question. All to say that just a lot of clarity, a lot of communication, and then just diligence on not falling behind. I think anytime you start delivering something to a very large group of people, once you fall behind, it starts looking like you're falling short on the expectations, and it can make people not happy with your delivery real quick. I don't know if that helps, but.
So do you pick out the habit for the people, like specifically for that person, or are you giving them like a list at the beginning of the month of like pick one out of these 4?
We have through the year right now for like our groups, we have 17 nutritional needs is what we call them, that are very general. And with our weekly Facebook post and email for it, we put in like, a list of things they could choose as an alternative, or it's kind of also our feed in for people that need extra help to say, nutrition is highly individualized. If you think you would need to go beyond this, we encourage you to reach out to us for more coaching, I guess you could say. So it's kind of like an upsell. And yeah, for our personal programming people, that is completely chosen by them. That's part of the initial intake of saying, basically, what do you think is holding you back from success? And what is the lowest hanging fruit that you can work on right now? And we start kind of doing that. We pretty much melded precision nutrition with more of like a numbers-based approach and let them guide based on their personality.
Awesome. Thank you.
So anybody have any questions for anyone else? That was a good segue, Dustin. Based on your needs, your demographics, theirs, etc.
Do you want me to go through this part?
Oh, yes.
Missing out.
Okay.
Like I said, slightly different population, very driven already towards their lifting, towards their numbers most of the time. Encouragement isn't really needed a whole lot, as in like go to the gym, do your stuff. But Yeah, as far as outside, so we do week-to-week programming for all of our people, that pretty much everyone. Few people, I've got like 5 or 6 monthly clients that are mainly like off-season people. But if they're in a comp prep and stuff, which is most of them, they're all week-to-week programming. They'll fill out a log, say how everything felt, how everything moved, if they've got any issues. They can pay to do nutrition with Mickey, and then they get a bit more on the nutrition side from that. But if they're not doing that, then I'll be talking to them weekly. Like, I'm talking to them a lot. They've all got little Facebook groups, private Facebook groups as well, so they post up all their videos in there and for technical feedback. But I also post up questions, just general stuff. How are you feeling? How's your mood? How's your energy? Are you sore? Things like that, and then start to get an idea of like how they're feeling, obviously on that side with the fatigue and the recovery, but then also just mentally, like a lot of people start freaking out like 4 to 6 weeks from comp, and then they'll just be like stressing, and then that'll make things super hard as well. And then I use that data, so nutrition, sleep, stress, to drive the program each week, whether I change the volume, intensity, exercise regressions, things like that, to deal with that to some degree. So yeah, most of our like lifestyles questions or stuff is based on that, like improving their recovery or performance, as opposed to mindset. But then close to comp, there will be a little bit of a focus on the mindset and making sure that they're ready to do their thing, really ready to hit the comp.
Yeah.
Is there any more with that you want it?
No, I think it's interesting. As far as I know, you're the only one training, athletes in the group. So it's going to be a much different specificity in questioning, I would think, based on, them chasing specific numbers, them chasing their lifts.
Yeah. If they're lift, I find, and it's exactly the same for me because I'm in the same boat, obviously, with the comps. But if my lifting's going great, then my life's going great. You know what I mean? Like, I'll just be more productive, and everything's really good, and I'm a lot more just positive in general, like a lot less stress. Whereas if I'm constantly worrying about, oh shit, I'm going to go to the gym tonight and I'm going to do squats and my knees are probably going to hurt and I'm probably going to fail it and I'm going to suck and everybody's going to laugh at me. Then just like my whole life is just so much stressful, and then like I usually get slack on things like nutrition and sleep because like I'm going to fail anyway. You know what I mean? Like, you start to get that mindset of like, fucking just fuck it. It's going, so I'm just going to chuck it. It's really easy to let people slide down that hill. Some people slide quicker than others, so I've got to try and preemptively catch people on that. And then at the end of each mesocycle, I'm talking to them, say, what do you reckon went well? What do you reckon went bad? And hopefully give them some direction. Like, I just have given them an idea of the plan going forward tends to help a lot with their mindset as well. It's a performance mindset anyway. If they have any issues as far as anything really far outside that performance realm, like, I'll help as best as I can, but it's just kind of not what people pay me for. So I try. Like, obviously it's all going to come back to like how they're lifting, like if they're super stressed and stuff. So I help as much as I can, but some people are just, they're not ready to do competitions. Well, they really shouldn't. They're almost just doing competitions because they're using it maybe to justify the issues that they had, because it helps them go like, oh, okay, I've got food disorder issues, so I'm going to do a comp to justify that or something like that. And that's when I'm like, no, sorry, like this is a little bit beyond me, and you need to see somebody like maybe other people here and get that sorted before you come back. And when you get that sorted, I have no doubt that your numbers will just go up and we won't even have to do anything. So it's win-win. But like I said before, powerlifters, like, or strength sports in general, like, they're just kind of like all that stuff, sissy stuff, and we just lift heavy weights, a lot of them. So really hard had to get him to open up about that. Yeah.
Jordan, did you see any of the same patterns in your athletes as far as performance dictating lifestyle factors?
Yeah, I don't know. I talk to my guys quite a bit, especially them being high schoolers,
Mm-hmm.
just on nutrition and just throw it in all the time. You know, if you want to get the weight going on, they're at a time when they can, you know, boost performance at levels that we dream of for the most part.
Yeah.
So if they can just dial in that sleep, and you know, that's a question that I ask every day. What do you have for breakfast? What do you have for lunch? You know, how did sleep go last night? And you can tell on a lot of them too when they come in tired and lethargic, and just reading the room. You know, just having a high EQ, just reading the person.
Yeah, it's seeing.
It really makes. Sometimes people will not like just educating them. Obviously, how like recovery or regeneration or whatever is important to their performance is a big thing for them to understand it and value it. But also trying to explain it from my point of view. Like I'm trying to give you like a weekly plan that is progressing on last week's plan, and that has each one is a step towards you being your best on this particular day. And if you're chucking in all these variables like nutrition that's off, sleep that's off, and it's just every day you're coming in a different person, like it just makes programming almost just a guessing game. So I try to tell them that and just say like, oh, look, I'm just throwing numbers out here. Like, I'm just hoping that you're going to be a good lifter this day because like, whatever, like you're so random. So then they start to go like, oh yeah, I totally get that. And then sometimes that'll be the spark that they need to, because then they feel like they're letting me down a bit. So sometimes I have to attack it a little bit different, but yeah, these are different strategies for different people. But just experience really has let me pick it out just from almost when we first talk, who they're going to be, what they're going to be.
I think one thing that you said really well was that, especially with the strength sports, you're getting ready for one day. So a lot of the athletes I'm working for, they need to be right for 12 weeks at a time. And you know, it's just the difference in the sport itself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, yeah, it is. It's just one day. Like if you screw up that day, then you've not wasted, but you kind of those last 6 months of effort, they're gone. So pay attention, do all your little things. I'll try to be nice about it, and then there are other people where I'm just like, do you want to get there and fail? Like, I know I don't. So different approaches, different people, as far as how I direct my wording. Some people just need to be told that they're going to fail if they don't.
Definitely.
Sounds harsh.
Yeah, that's for sure. Does anybody have any questions for anybody else?
So what you said, sometimes you got to tell them to try harder.
It's that simple, right? For some people. Anybody else?
Does everyone use apps for a lot of the objective stuff? Like I said, I don't use a lot of objective measures other than Google Docs with like volume and a bunch of other stuff, just because I see my people a lot of the times. But like, is there any preference on that stuff? Like, I know Kyle, you and I have kind of talked about it, but like, I'm just curious, like how everyone else does some of those measures, even if it's just like, did I get this much sleep? Because it's pretty hard to manage when you got a lot of people and you're not using that stuff. So.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually got 2 apps I kind of use for standard life cycle stuff. Funny enough, it's actually called Life Cycle and Sleep Cycle. The Sleep Cycle one, I don't know how accurate it actually is. I've tried to compare it with my Garmin Sleep app, which tends to be a little more spot on. It's so some of the times. Anyways, the alarm function is really cool because it starts the volume at 0 and slowly increases. And if you don't wake up after like 20 odd seconds, it'll die down for a minute. Anyways, it does a much calmer like wake up for you, as well as trying to track actual hours of sleep. It pairs with the app, which will register GPS, like how often you're at work, how often you're at home, how long you slept. And then there's little journal features in there, like it'll also tell you walking steps per day. resting heart rate if you got the monitor connected, stuff like that. So the journaling's kind of cool because it makes them actually think about what they did at their day to work, if there's an actual success, or the hour they were at the gym, what they worked on, stuff like that.
Nice.
We just use the Google Sheets, really. Like, I've looked into software, none of it really covers it for us. Like all the little things, the weekly changes make it really hard to find something that does it all really well, especially because we use weird exercises that sometimes when they have databases built in, it's just like like stuff that you do, Kyle, is like those exercises aren't going to be in a standard little app or like whatever, and usually they're badly explained anyway. But so we don't, I'll just have a little directory of exercises and weekly they'll fill it out. People are pretty good at filling out those little details for me. I don't care. It's just like literally a scale of 1 to 10. I'm not asking them to write a novel.
Yeah, just art-based stuff.
For the recovery stuff, like how. I'm gonna have to jump off, Kyle, just because I've got another call to jump on. So sorry to leave, but
No, all good, man. You actually got to go to work. The rest of us are. I'm going to bed soon. So
yes, it's kind of like it's midday. It's midday, so I've got still got stuff to do. Got some work.
All right, yeah. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, we'll chat later. Hey. Bye.
All right, bye, bud.
Good luck.
Anybody else have any questions for anyone else on the call before we hop off? No?
I kind of just wanted to say it sounded like everyone was on a pretty similar page as far as movement assessment goes, what we're looking for in a sagittal plane, frontal plane, whatever discrepancies we might find and methods that they would use to kind of work on it or get them out of it. In regards, I guess we're on a standard like kind of coaching communication platform. What we're actually trying to get at is the, I guess, blueprint of how we go about addressing our clients, whether it be in group feature or individual feature. I think trying to move past what they are on any sort of movement screening and looking at them as an organism trying to flourish in day-to-day life. What can we do to kind of set them up for success, not just where they're in our gym for the hour where we kind of have the most say-so over what they do, but how we better influence what they're doing with sleep, how they're approaching bedtime, how they're interacting with kids throughout the day, or random tips and tricks that's kind of keeping them on a different outlook day-to-day life and how they view their exercise, because we're at the point in our society that it's a voluntary mechanism to try and maintain health, and if we keep at it like it's a chore or something that we're focused on hitting every day. In my realm, I'm a CrossFitter wants to be laying on the floor at the end of the workout with their ass beat, and that's not always what they need. At the other side, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are worried they're pushing too much or they're under recovering in some senses and so forth. But I think making sure people understand this is a voluntary process to which to maintain health and how they can look at the whole picture as progression towards vitality or whatever they're looking for, goal sake. General populace, I see that as the biggest, I guess, success when working with a client.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a little bit what I was getting at from the last question, and just seeing, trying to gauge what everybody was doing from a qualitative versus quantitative goal selection standpoint, because in my experience, people are generally coming to the gym for, fitness solutions to lifestyle issues, right? That's really what we're talking about is I think somebody even said Band-Aids. I think Adele did, where, we're providing Band-Aids for most people. We're not, outside of Jordan, who's training, people with athletic goals, and Will, who's obviously training athletes as well. The majority of us are training, everyday people, the GPs, as we call them. And for me, that's a big part of it is, it's 2 to 3 hours a week not going to solve that, right? So the biggest thing that I try to do is just set general awareness, so I have a daily questionnaire that I have everybody fill out, either through TrueCoach or I've used Google Forms in the past with the automated add-on. And it's really just rating for them daily readiness, sleep quality, nutrition of the previous day, hydration of the previous day, and morning resting heart rate. Those are the big 5 things that I have them fill out. Hopefully every day, but if not every training day is kind of the minimum that I do. And for me, it's like I have to make it as easy as possible, right? It has to be extremely easy and extremely time efficient. So if I can make it to where it takes under 30 seconds and it pops up in their email every day, I feel pretty good about it. So it's all those things are rated 1 to 5. Like I don't dig too deep into what makes a 4 on your nutrition of 4. I just want to see, even if it is what their perceived subjective rating is. In my experience and from the things I've read from a psychology base, the fact that they're rating these things on a daily basis is going to improve their habitual actions over time. Because nobody wants to be the asshole that keeps saying they got a 2 on sleep because they're playing Xbox till 2 in the morning. Like no one wants to do that as an adult, right? So I'll keep having these things done. And through both of those programs I mentioned, I can see analytics, right? So I can see if someone's trending from a 2 to a 4 over a 2-month span, or if I see a dip, right? And they've gone from like mostly 3s and 4s down to 1s for a couple of weeks. And then I can start having in-person conversations built around that. But it does save me a little bit of time of having the conversations every single time I see them. If I can make it more of an automated process and more of, let's call it an ownership-driven process rather than me having to always initiate the conversation. Same thing like with resting heart rate. I used to do HRV. Like I was probably dug way too deep down the HRV rabbit hole a few years ago and probably gave people a little bit too much of a fragile mindset when I was doing it because I was listening to the wrong people, right? Now I look at resting heart rate and just establish a baseline and look at fluctuations. If I see somebody who is consistently for more than say 2 or 3 days in a row sitting 5 to 10 beats above their resting heart rate, I know they're undergoing some kind of systemic stress, right? They're definitely probably tonic. And because of that, I can pretty safely assume also that, hey, your sleep quality is not going to be what it should be. There's probably some stressor in your life happening right now. If they're a kid like Jordan has, it might be they have finals. It might be that their girlfriend broke up with them. It might be that they're going into regionals. If they're an adult working professional, it could be any number of lifestyle things, right? It could be the flu. It could be a lot of different things, but it at least allows me to ask a question. Hey, what's going on right now? Because just based on some general stress markers, I'm seeing that there might be something lifestyle-wise that we just need to discuss that might be throwing off your training. And the other big thing that I've done from that is because they're coming to me for fitness and they probably have some kind of goal based on that anytime I'm talking lifestyle, I have to find a way to always circle that back to fitness. It has to be goal relative every time. Like if it's Beverly's demographic, it has to be related to their goals, right? If it's a high school kid, it has to be related to throwing the ball harder or running faster and jumping higher. If it's one of Will's guys, it's lifting heavier without pain, right? If it's one of Keaton's people, it's just being without pain, maybe, and moving well. So everybody's got some kind of objective goal if they're coming to a gym typically, right? We should be able to find it. And at that point, if I'm talking anything that diverges from the actual gym space, I'm going to always have to relate that question back to that goal. If I want it to stick, if I want it to be relative at all. So it's like, for me, it's like it has to be goal oriented and it has to be even and it has to be time efficient.
Or weight moving.
Yeah.
Metric in the gym facility. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's what I hear. Like, that's what I am.
Mm-hmm.
you know, if they need a different scope, I'm going to send them to a different scope.
Yeah, so kind of what I heard, even just like what Eli brought up, and then piggybacking on you as well. First, kind of getting beyond all our initial assessments and whatnot, because it sounds like we're all on point. Is more so just what are our systems for ensuring that goals and needs analysis are done with a regular basis for all of our people, and how do we go about creating kind of the nudges to them to kind of act on it. And then kind of what I got for you is one big thing we're trying to dive in. I'm a big believer in self-determination theory for people. And so like everything we do now is just trying to set up environment and gentle nudges to where they are feeling like they're making the majority of their decisions, that we're not telling them what to do, but they're more so being guided into, hey, you know, like you said with the daily questionnaire, you know, why I've been twos the last 2 weeks, maybe I should do something about it. So I'm glad you went down that route, because that's something we've been diving into more.
And that's even something Kyle mentioned, was like, no one wants to be the asshole that scores themselves like shit every single day. And just another point to that was, even on the Stronger You Nutrition side, is they're like a huge company, and a lot of their stuff that we do with nutrition is just them tracking metrics, whether it's macros or calories, but like sleep, bowel movements, and all these things and they'll have like notes, but they have to do it every week, and they have to send it in to you. So it's a pain in the ass to do that for most people, just even to make that weekly check-in. So like that ends up being the hard work, so to speak. But if they know the expectation is they have to do it, and that's how they continue on the program, they have to do it, and they have to go through the process of doing that, which is essentially waking them up, hopefully, especially when they have to write it down. And so I think that is a big part of it. Like I said, I didn't do that much in the training aspect, and I do it through Google Docs, but especially on the nutrition side, I don't really see a way to not do that online. Like you can kind of do it, but the most success has been just with that tracking piece. And the physical act of doing it is a huge motivator, just because you know when you suck at it because you have to write it in, or you're lying. I don't think anyone goes into those things wanting to lie either. So
yeah, definitely. Anything else? Awesome. Well, I appreciate everybody's time. I know it's a Sunday night. I know we got, most of you guys have very early mornings tomorrow, so I'm not going to keep you any later than that. But I appreciate everybody. Thank you so much, and hopefully you guys get to know each other a little more. I'm going to post this so everybody can follow each other and hopefully interact a little more. But yeah, have a good night. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
see you guys
Later.
Nice meeting you guys.